Director and writer Tom Huang here. He's a multi-award-winning indie filmmaker, producer, director, and writer. His last feature film, Find Me, do you guys remember Find Me? Oh, yeah. Drew rave reviews from audiences and critics alike in the U.S., scoring 100% on Rotten Tomatoes with critics, and winning Best Screenplay at the Rhode Island International Film Festival, Best Feature Film at the Atlanta Independent Film Festival, and the Audience Award at the DisOrient Asian American Film Festival. The film was streaming hit on Amazon Prime, reaching Prime's top drama and popular film lists. Outside Magazine named it the indie adventure film we all need. I think that's pretty appropriate. Yes. And you can still catch it if you haven't seen it on Amazon Prime and other digital release platforms like Google Play and Tubi TV. Also, he's been a Warner Brothers sitcom workshop graduate and been staff writer for network TV sitcoms, including the critically lauded ABC show Sons and Daughters, as well as Still Standing on CBS, and The Mullets on UPN. He studied creative writing at UCLA, and while dabbling in stand-up and improv, he also headed then to film school at Loyola Marymount University, earning his Master's of Fine Arts in Film Production. Tom is a Film Independent Screenwriting Lab Fellow where he developed his current feature film, Dealing with Dad. So please welcome Tom Huang. We also have Dana Lee, who is did an incredible job playing this very, very intense character. And he's a veteran actor for close to 50 years. He's equally adept at performing on the big screen, television, and on stage. It's pretty impressive. He's done a few radio plays. He has been in some of the biggest grossing films of all times. Go back and look at Rambo, First Blood Part 2, Lethal Weapon 4, Pineapple Express, and many, many more. He was seen in Birds of Prey as Doc. On the small screen, Dana has close to 60 guest starring roles, most notably recurred on Dynasty and Kung Fu. He can still be seen recurring on Curb Your Enthusiasm. Not to mention, everybody knows him as Ken Jeong's dad in Dr. Ken. If he looks familiar to you. In theater, Dana was a stalwart member of the East-West Players for many years. He's performed in venues all over the world, including the Public, the Joyce in New York, the Mark Taper Forum, the Doolittle in LA, the Kennedy Center in DC, the National Theater of Korea in Seoul, and Singapore Repertory Theater in Singapore. So he's done stage, TV, film. We're anxious to talk with him. Please welcome Dana Lee. So Tom, so impressive, so glad to be sharing this film here. Can you tell us how the film came to be?
As I said before, it was based on my experiences trying to get my own dad out of depression. And it was such a transformative moment, time period for me. My dad, he's not quite the a-hole as Dana played. But he was still very strict and very much about trying to figure out what I want to do with my life as opposed to needing to know me. And so when we first got depressed, it was very difficult to figure out what was going on. But at the same time, that kind of very strict veneer that he always put on all his life, it just kind of melted away. And he actually started talking to me, and he started telling me about his life. And, I think I became closer to him when he got depressed, which is kind of ironic. When we were finally able to figure out, a way to get him better, it took a lot of time. I realized that I wanted to write something about it. I wanted to share my experience with people because I know a lot of people are going through the same thing I am and don't realize what's going on. And I wanted to show people there's a way that you could find a way to deal with this, and just leaving it alone is not going to help anything. Good.
Wow, that was really amazing, and a lot of us, I think, here relate to the experiences you talked about. Can you tell us about your writing process?
I think for the films that I do, that I direct myself, I try to make something that's personal, something that means something to me. And so I think I feel like a lot of writer directors that make films that I enjoy, they do things that are personal to them, and it really shows on the screen. Their soul shows on the screen. So, this film is just writing the script has made a lot of sense to me. And I think with any script that I write, the main characters, character films are what I like to do. So before I even write anything, I take the characters and I say, what the characters is like at the beginning of the movie, and then what they're going to be like at the end of the movie. So these goalposts of where I want that character to go towards. And so once I start with that, then I fill everything in between. So that's basically how I start things out.
Great. Well, some of you, enjoyed this for the first time, and it was actually the first time that Dana Lee got to see the film in its completion, so we all experienced it together. Dana,
Yeah.
I want to hear your reaction. What do you think?
I'll be very honest. As an actor, when you're asked to do an independent film, I love the script, and even when you like a script, you don't really know how it's going to turn out because a lot depends on the director and the cameraman and the editor and all that. So when you do an independent film, it is really dicey sometimes. But when Tom gave me the script, I loved it. I said, okay, now let's see what this guy can do, with it. And I got to tell you, I am thoroughly impressed. Really. And there's an old saying in Hollywood, if a movie has one good performance, it's the actor. But when there's tons of performances, it's the director. And in this case, the director did a masterful job. And I'm so proud to be a part of this movie. Okay, Tom?
Thank you, Dana. Well, Tom has shown 3 feature films at DisOrient. I don't know if, some of you may have seen all of them. You showed Why Am I Doing This in 2010, Find Me in 2018, and now Dealing with Dad. I love many things about your film, but one of the things I notice is that you seem to have very, very racially and ethnically diverse casts. And I'm wondering if that's just random or is that intentional?
Oh, yeah, definitely intentional. It's one more thing to piggyback on what Dana's kind words. I think Alexander Payne, one of my favorite directors, one of the things he says is sometimes 90% of directing is casting. And I think in this case, that was my job, is that, if this film was going to work, I could do all the crazy directing things, visual effects, nice camera work, but if people don't like the actors or believe in the actors, then this film was never going to work. And so, it pleased me very much that he said the thing about the whole cast, because we worked very hard in making this, making sure we had the cast, and then just putting the camera down and letting the cast go at it. And they did. Yeah. So that was great. As far as the diversity, the other thing that I try to do in my own films is, I actually started out wanting to be an actor, and I went to UCLA, and I remember going out to audition for their one-act plays, which is a big deal over there. That's when, and I went to go see what roles I could go out for, and there was, out of probably 30 plays, there's just one role that I could audition for, and this is UCLA, which is 70% Asian. And so I realized then that if I was gonna, if I wanted roles that are interesting, or I'd have to create them myself. So that's when I decided to go into creative writing at UCLA, and then I went to Little Marymount University for film school. But I very much want to show in my films America as I see it. And so I live in Los Angeles, it's very diverse, and I don't see a lot of that on screen. Till recently, but I wanted to not just show an Asian American family, but an Asian American family mixed in America, which means there's going to be blacks, there's going to be whites, there's going to be Indian, there's going to be all sorts of different people mixed in with our shared experience, and that's what makes us America. And so I work very hard to make sure that that the cast is diverse, that works with the story.
Great. Well, I think we appreciate that. I have to give it to you. You're funny. I've talked to you multiple times. You are funny, but you.
Not when he's directing.
No, when he's. I believe that. That I believe. And maybe I asked your kids and see if they think you're funny, but you put a lot of pressure on your actors because you could have just, what a lot of people do is they get the one funny actor and the whole script leans on that one actor, but you made all of your characters have to have like perfect comedic timing and all of that. You put pressure on yourself and your actors that way. Can you talk about that?
Well, I mean, part of it that again is casting. Especially, I think the most important part, besides Dana, of course, he was the first one that was cast, is the role of Margaret. I originally wrote this a while ago, I always imagined Sandra Oh playing it. But I needed an actress, that could do comedy and do drama and have that range. And it doesn't matter what race you are. Like finding an actor that could do comedy and drama is really hard. Like I did a lot of table reads, and I found a lot of great actresses who are great dramatic actresses, but they just didn't get the comedy part of it. And I had, when you have to explain why something is funny, then it makes things difficult. Maybe I'm not funny. I mean, that's probably another weird thing too. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, maybe it's not funny. And then, but you see Allie. I mean, she just flows in between dramatic and comedy. Just like it's just it's like it's so seamless. And that's exactly what I needed. And so all the actors that I looked for, I needed them to be able to be funny. And I saw this man in a sitcom called Dr. Ken, where he's kind of he's all right, yeah. Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Mediocre.
Yeah, in there. And then Hayden, who I've always wanted to work with, was in this great film called Edge of 17. I don't know if you've seen it. If you haven't, it's great with Haley Stanfield. It's a great teen movie. He's just like really funny in that, but also showed his dramatic side. And then Peter is actually a stand-up comic. He was recently in the Just for Laughs festival and is a writer, but he has that vulnerability and like the kind of everyday guy kind of person that I was looking for.
It was great.
Yeah, and he was actually the hardest one to find because all the actors that I got some really great submissions and actors, but they're all like pretty boys and like I wanted someone that just like looked like one of my cousins that I knew. And like Peter, he would when I saw him, like, oh, this is great. And then I saw him do the. He actually auditioned for it. So seeing him read it, it was like, oh, this guy can do it. So yeah, I think again, it was just the casting and also all the other people that all the side characters. It was so important. Like people like Karan Soni, who plays Gordon, the doctor guy. I mean, that guy, he's in Deadpool and Miracle Workers, and he just likes he's the perfect example of the people that who they star in other movies and TV shows, and they were willing to be part of this production. And having funny, dramatic actors that supported everyone else just made everything come together.
You worked with, you guys got to work with some amazing people, even, in all the roles. Like the cinematographer worked on For Izzy, which was an opening night film here years ago, if you guys remember that. Young Margaret, she recently starred in Marvelous in the Black Hole, and she's, holding down, the lead role. Anthony Ma, he's been up here. He's hysterical. The one who played Xiao Li. And then the shop owner who played Sylvester on Scorpion, my husband likes that show. So anyway, you worked with some great people. How was the chemistry, Dana? I mean, did you and the cast spend any time together? Were you guys separated in your own diva trailers, or
Trailer? What trailer? No. What Tom did was to rent out
Airbnb.
Airbnb, and for us to stay in because under SAG rules, if it's beyond a certain mileage, you have to put the actors overnight if they choose. So he got this, and so we all stay there, and after the shoot we would gather around and have dinner and make sure that Tom wasn't around, and then we'd diss about the film and diss about Tom's direction, No, but we bonded that way at the house, So
That is very cool. Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Here you
Here we go. Here we go.
I have to add that, like, right before we were shooting, one of the actors texted me and said, "Hey, we're going to Dana's house. He's making us dinner." I'm like, "What?" And so, like, he actually made this barbecue dinner for them before they even started shooting to, like, talk to
Korean
them.
barbecue.
That's right. That's right.
Wow. That's so cool. And I think I heard a story about someone being locked in a bathroom. What was that?
Yeah, so the Airbnb, it was these gigantic Airbnbs in Diamond where we shot. They have like 8 bedrooms and they have these great pictures, and so we stayed in these Airbnbs, and like you said, it worked out really great. People were hanging out. It was like summer camp, and then one night right before I was going to bed, I got a text from Hayden, and he's like, "Tom, I can't get out of my bathroom." And apparently, like, the locks locked in and you couldn't get out. So I had to go over there and, like, talk him through it. And I was like, is there a window? He's like, yeah. So you had to crawl the window, but it was like, it was all part of the
And your insurance company didn't hear about that one.
No,
So, yeah.
neither did SAG.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah, it's good. Yeah.
The abuse you put your crew through in cast. Hey Dana,
Yes.
I loved your character in Dr. Ken. Like that must have been a fun gig. So lighthearted, people, lovable characters, and it must have been fun to go on set.
To be a series regular, especially on a sitcom, is like one of the best thing to do in Hollywood, because you have set hours, you have one location where you show up, and the writers write, actually literally write for you. Now, when they're casting for a part, especially for a series regular on a sitcom, of course they wrote the character a certain way, all right? And so they'll try to find the actor who come closest to that character, and they'll cast that. But once you're cast, then they tailor it specifically for you, and that's what's so great. And the other good thing about my role was that I was able to play, of course, an older Asian American character who had to deal with divorce, had to deal with a new girlfriend, and the aging process. And it was great. I was able to use that platform to voice what I was feeling, and that was great.
Well, thank you for that. And I was thinking that gig was really lighthearted and fun, and then you get the script for like this very heavy, kind of serious,
This one?
dark, yeah.
Yeah.
So, did you, and dealing with mental health, and why did you end up deciding to accept it? Like you can pick and choose, and I'm sure you've refused roles before.
I have, but to be honest, rarely. Okay. There is one that I turned down the audition for. Anyway, I don't want to go into it, because it turned out that whoever got it did like 10 episodes. Anyways, no. The reason why I took it, obviously, the first thing is I love the script, and then of course I love the character, and dealing with the depression. You know what? If you're an Asian actor in Hollywood, there's no problem dealing with depression, okay? You deal with depressions all the time. But here's the thing. I can do comedy, and I've done a lot of drama, and the thing is that you'll find that, as a general rule, not all the time, but people who can do comedy usually can do drama. You find that, but it's not always true the other way around. So, okay.
Well, thanks. Thank you. And I'm kind of curious about the production, because you wrote it and then you did the screenwriting lab. Can you talk about the process of making it into a film?
Yeah, I think every film has its own journey. This film, I wrote in 6 months, which is pretty fast for a feature, just because I knew exactly what I wanted. Actually, when I first wrote it, I wrote the lead to be a Chinese American male like myself. But then when I started writing, I realized it'd be like just 10 times more interesting if it was female, because of like all the shit that Chinese daughters have to go through.
Oh yeah, amen there. I'll rip the mic out of your hand and start talking.
You tell them, Pam. And so, I changed it to that. But after I wrote it, there's this organization called Film Independent. They put on the Spirit Awards that you might see, like it's like the Indie Oscars. But they're an organization that wants to help promote and help develop independent and diverse films. And so they have this yearly workshop that that they just pick like 6 to 8 projects. And so I submitted to them, and was just really happy to find out that they accepted it. And so we went through a process where it was me and 6 to 8 other filmmakers, and we all worked on each other's scripts. They brought in producers, they brought in other like established screenwriters. We had mentors, and they really brought in all they could bring in to help us make the script the best they could be. And then they continued to support us after the lab. And one of the things we went through was called the Fast Track program. Once they saw that Find Me did well, actually, that they said, okay, we'll put you to the Fast Track Lab, which is another program where they bring in 60 companies, film companies, that are interested in developing diverse and independent films. And in 3 days, you pitch to 60 companies, 15 minutes pitches. So it's like 20, we had 20 companies each day. But they're like big companies. They're like A24, like 20th Century, Fox Searchlight, and also smaller production companies that are looking to fund films. And it was a really great experience, and that helped us actually find a couple people to help fund the film. And another part, of course, was just funding. We had a target. I got some producers on board who really liked the script. We got some grants to start off, and then funding just came from, there wasn't just one place. It was like a lot of different places. I'd probably say maybe 20, 25 different places. I mean, kind of like how you put together the festival, actually. We found just little pieces here and there. And once we got enough just to shoot the film, we decided to shoot the film because we had just enough to shoot the film, and then decided to find out how to get the post-production done afterwards. So that's, it took us that long. And probably in the span of like 3 years, including the pandemic, funding came in and out. So we'd be like, okay, here we go, we're gonna go. Oh, the pandemic happened. Oh, okay, then the funding fell out. Then middle of the pandemic, it's like, okay, some people said they're gonna bring some money, and then all of a sudden they pulled out. And in fact, it's kind of funny. I'll tell you a story later.
Now that it's over, it's funny, right?
Yeah. So I was actually in the car and with some people, and we were driving, and the phone, like the person who was getting the money for us, it was like, I saw, oh, it's from them. It's like, oh, you guys be quiet, I got a speakerphone. And like, hey, Thomas, got some bad news, the funding fell through. And everyone in the car was like, oh, shit. Like, it's really quiet, it was really awkward. But that just, that's the way it goes with film. So back in July, when we actually shot this, it was like, we had the funding just enough to shoot the film. It's like, all right, let's do this before the funding comes through, falls through. And so we just pushed ahead and shot it.
Wow. And you worked with, like Brian Yang, who worked on Linsanity, and you worked with some quality people. I recognize Randy's name because he was involved with, he came up to DisOrient, he was involved with Find Me. So, and it's a good sign that he's willing to work with you again.
Yes. Yeah, so I think, for a small film like this, all our producers like Randy and Brian Yang and Cindy Liu was another one, and a friend of mine, Tanner Kling, they all have their own production companies, and they're all working on projects. They were all working on projects during this project. And so it was really like, they just came in and helped when they were free. And it was just out of, no one got paid, they'll get back in if we make money, but it's like, it was just really a team effort, and, I can't thank those people enough to come in and help out and make sure this film got made while working on other things where they're actually getting paid. So yeah, it was really great.
That's awesome. Well, I do have I want to talk with Dana a little bit since we have him here. But before we get to you, I want to shine a light on your beautiful wife, Michelle. Michelle, and it's been fun to meet her. And I understand that, is it your father, grandfather, who was in the 442nd? Grandfather, right? Father. Wow. So give Michelle a hand. So, Dana, I want to hear about how you got started. And I mean, you grew up in Houston, Texas, as an Asian American,
Yep.
and you were in East-West Players and did theater work.
Yes.
Okay, let's hear about it all.
Well, okay, I grew up in Houston, Texas. Okay, in segregated Houston, Texas, by the way. And you know, the funny thing is that there's a documentary film in this festival that talks about Crystal.
Yes, blurring the color line.
Blurring the color
Crystal Quan.
line. Talks about her family's experience in Augusta, Georgia, and I had pretty much the same experience growing up in Houston, Texas, where my father was a grocer, and he can only have a store in the black section of town, and yet at the same time, we were allowed to live in the white section of town, where the kids were able to go to the white schools, but you know, my dad couldn't take money from the white man. He had to take money from at that time called the color man, you know. So, so nevertheless, because of that, I grew up. I guess a fish out of water. I didn't know. I grew up shy, and I was bullied a lot. And at one point in high school, I decided to. I said, you know, I gotta try to get over my shyness. You know, maybe I'll take a speech class. You know, so yeah, that should do it. If I get in front of people and speak, maybe, you know, I would get out of my shell. So I went to the speech coach. I remember his name was Jerry Long. And I said, oh, Mr. Long, I want to take a speech class, your speech class. He looked at me and said, no. I said, what? What do you mean? I said, no? You can't say no to a student in high school. You know, I'm thinking, he said, you're going to be in my drama class. I said, oh, I guess that could kind of work too, you know. And that was the start. And I tell you, and the thing is that in Houston, high school drama acting is a very big deal. There were competitions every weekend, you know, dramatic interpretation, comedic interpretation, duets, and this. And every weekend there's a competition. So, and I entered in competitions. And I remember one time, and this has stuck with me because it's really important to my career as an actor. I was doing a duet scene from Inherit the Wind, okay? And after that, after the first round, the judge came up to me and said, you know, kid, I think you might have some little bit of talent, but maybe next time you should do something from The King and I. And I, you know, of course, at that time, I said, oh yeah, okay, I'll talk to my coach. So I went back and talked to my coach, Jerry Long. And I said, oh, Mr. Long, you know, the judge, he said, instead of doing Inherit the Wind, maybe I should do something from The King and I. And my coach, I remember, he blew up. He said, you would not do The King and I. You would do whatever I tell you to do. I said, oh, okay. And he said, remember, one thing. If you don't learn anything else from my class, remember this. You're an actor. You can play anything you want. And let me remind you, this is 1960-ish, Houston, Texas. A white drama coach told me that.
Wow. So the power
Okay.
of teachers, if there are any educators in the audience.
And I remember that to this day. And anyways, getting back, I'll make it quick, you know, I came out here to, first of all, I wanted to get out of Houston. I mean, I would have to get out of Dodge. So I came here to LA. And of course I wanted to be an actor, but it took me a while. But how I got in was a friend of mine, they were doing the pilot of Kung Fu. A friend of mine was doing some extra work on it. And I remember one day he told me, you know, He said to me, he said, "Oh, my wife is expecting. I can't do this. Can you take over for me?" You know, I said, "Extra work? I don't want to do extra work." And remember, this is like 1970s, okay? He said, "Well, they're paying $200 a day." I said, "What? $200 a day for extra work?" I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And I went there, and I remember the director, Jerry Thorpe. He was also the producer. He looked at me. He said, "You gonna be back tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, why?" "I could." He said, "Because I've got a special duty for you." So, and I came back the next day. I had a special duty, and boom, I got an extra $100 on top of that. And then he pulled me aside and said, "You know what? Follow the trays. If this show gets picked up, give me a call. I'll get you on as an actor on the show." Wow. And that's what happened. The show got picked up. I called him. He called his casting director. He said, "Bring this guy in, give him a part." Wow. And that's how I got in.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
So back then, could you have ever imagined that you'd be here today with an Asian American director and such a strong quality cast of Asian American, actors and working on a film? Did you imagine that could be possible back then?
Well, let's put it this way. I had hoped. I had hoped, okay? Even though, obviously at that time, as an Asian American actor, you don't get in for fame and fortune initially. But, there's always in the back of your mind that could happen, and you could be working with Asian American directors and all that. So, I think as an actor, if you don't have hope, you shouldn't be in this business.
That's true. That is true. Well, great. Thank you.
My pleasure.
That was wonderful to hear that journey. You guys got to deal with adult sibling relationships. I mean, I've got 3 sisters and a brother, so this is like very dear to my heart. I got one of my sisters here, so how was that like? I mean, that was kind of funny, and I think so universally relatable.
Yeah, I think I really love exploring what people are like depending on where they are in the pecking order of brothers and sisters. And, I always feel like that just in general, the oldest usually has a certain personality, the middle usually has a certain personality, and the youngest has a personality. And so I wanted to play with those roles in this case and kind of mix it up a little bit too. And so I really think that the way your relationship is with your brothers and sisters when you're younger usually ends up being the same when you're older. And so I wanted to show that here too in the film. And I think once the actors understood what that pecking order meant and what it meant to their relationships, they just took off with it. And so it really helped that the actors understood that themselves. They're all part of big crazy families themselves, and so I think they saw a lot of themselves or their sisters and brothers in those roles. So yeah.
Right. I was kind of curious about the dream sequences. When Margaret would experience some panic, and what did you want to capture with those scenes?
I wanted to just show the evolution of Margaret's just her state of being and what she was feeling about things. I think a lot of us, put up our own public facade of who we are, but inside we're either, there's something very different going on. And often, you don't want to show that side to people. And often that just shows up in dreams. For me, anyway, I'm the kind of person that, can wake up in my dream and, say, oh, I'm in a dream, and, oh, let's go flying, or whatever, or I'll get a different car, or whatever. And so I wanted to explore it here and just be another way of showing how Margaret has her change of how she deals with her dad. And I think everyone reads from the film, those dreams, different things depending on their own personality. But really, I think it's clear at the end that the water represents dad, and so the way that dad takes over her life and freaks her out, and then eventually she realized that with the dad you just can't fight it. You have to kind of go with it and see where it takes you. I think once she realizes that, that's when she is able to come to terms with it, with your relationship with her dad. So that's just another way I wanted to show that without explicitly saying it.
Well, thank you for sharing what's inside your crazy head. I'm going to ask 2 more questions, and then we'll take questions from the audience. I really appreciate that you dealt with some heavy subjects, and one of the things you did was acknowledge racism in our community. I mean, you kind of took it on head on, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. And what kind of conversations have you had with, fellow writers and things about shaping those storylines?
Yeah, and I think Dana can probably speak about this too, but my parents are racist. I mean, and I know they love me and I love them, and it's hard for me to deal with them, but I think that just sugarcoating what's going on, and a lot of it is just from ignorance, and kind of trying to find protection, security coming into this country, and so there's actually more of it in my original script, but I just wanted to just kind of touch on it, and actually the actors were having problems with it because I wanted to show it existed, and I didn't think it's something you could just solve in the film. And so some of it I had to cut back on because it was just if we're going to bring it up, then we need to deal with it. And so I cut it back a little bit and really just kind of touched on it, and also showed, Margaret actually discussing it with her mom. And I think that's the key is that a lot of times when you build these walls with your family, you forget that sometimes just sitting down and just as hard as it may be and what a pain in the ass it may be, but just talking with them about it, giving the benefit of the doubt that it does sometimes make a difference, and that's what ends up happening there. But yeah, I think in this case, I just want to touch on it, but I want to bring it up more in another film.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to comment a little bit more about the interracial relationship that's in Hollywood. I remember when I first started out. Of course, if you're an Asian American actor, you're pigeonholed into doing certain things, and interracial relationships were taboo. To make it when I started out, of course, I had characters named Chinaman number 1, and then I remember in terms of relationship. I did a movie called Girls of the White Orchid. It's about white women being shipped over to Japan to be prostitutes and stuff. Anyways, of course I played a thug, And at one time, one of the girls that was Ann Gillian, played by Ann Gillian. And so in one scene, I grabbed her and I kissed her. Okay, and guess what? The next scene, she threw herself in front of a truck and got killed. And now that's how many years ago? And I told Tom this. I just did a Grey's Anatomy on Wednesday before I came up here, and in that I played the grandfather whose wife was attacked, during these Asian things, right? But we have all my kids and my grandkids there. Well, one of my sons is married to a black lady. And, of course, my grandkid is half Asian and half black. And nobody made any reference to it at all. We were just there. We were just an interracial family, and that was it. Nobody commented on it. Nobody threw themselves in front of a bus, Anyways, things have changed.
That's great to hear. It's a little bit of progress, right? Yes. Baby steps. I think my final question, I got a million, but I'm going to limit myself, is you learned about depression along the way. Can you tell us a little bit about what you learned?
I think for me, when trying to get my dad depression, I think part of the reason why it took so long, which was 8 years again, was trying to get my family to understand that depression, what kind of disease, that it's actually a disease. I think especially in Asian American culture or Asian cultures, and also a lot of cultures, being depressed is looked as weakness. It's looked as an emotion, not a disease that could be tackled, like the flu or COVID or something. And so getting my family and my mom to come on board and then understand that, to help support my dad and get him to understand that was probably the hardest thing. What I learned is that like education is really important. And so part of the reason I made this film is I was hoping that people that might know someone depressed or someone with symptoms of depression would see this and say, oh, there's actually something we could do about this. And just take the first step of getting people to look into it as opposed to like ignoring it or just thinking, oh, let's go away, because it won't. And I think Dana did such a great job of playing depressed dad, and I think it's because, you could talk about this, but that he told me he knew people, that were depressed, and he understood that. And, him playing on there, I've already had, 5 or 6 screenings, and every screener has been someone that's gone through depression. So like the way he portrayed it, it's exactly, what I see myself and I've seen other people too. So I think that was really important.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for covering that.
I can't add to that.
Yeah, you can.
No.
Let's take some questions, if you've got some. Yeah. There. Mike's coming your way. Thank you for having a question and making the most of our time with Tom and Dana.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for bringing us this movie. I was crying and laughing and crying and laughing. I just love the brother and sister relationship so much. And I'm from Taiwan and I'm a filmmaker too. I'm so thrilled to see this movie here. And I just have one tiny small question. I know how hard an indie filmmaker could be. Can you just share one more incredible, maybe crazy story behind the scene?
You don't have any of those.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll share 2 things. One, a testament to the skill of the actors, including Dana, is not so much the dramatic parts, but we shot 70% of the film in a town called Diamond Bar, which is about 50 minutes east of Los Angeles, in July. So it was in an old house that was built in the 90s with very limited air conditioning. So it was about, you can't tell there, but it was about 98 degrees in the house. And so especially the scenes where, the actors supposed to look like they were cold, they're shivering. It's like, if you could be there and watch it, it was as soon as you'll cut, it's like everyone just tore off their clothes. People come running with fans and stuff, and you're like, I gotta get outside, And they run out and we'll reset, and then people come back, put their stuff on again, and then get right back into it. And it's this was happening on a daily basis. Every shot was like that. And it was just it was comical. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. The second thing is probably, oh yeah, go ahead. You go say.
And I keep asking Tom, do I really need to put this blanket on?
But he sold it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's under that blanket, not a bead of sweat on him. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, I know, exactly.
You willed your body not to sweat, huh? That's the kind of actor you are.
And then the second thing was we shot at a real Taiwanese restaurant near the house. And so, I speak some Mandarin, and one of my associate producers, he studies Chinese, and it's he speaks with his parents. So we had some Chinese speakers there, but so when we talked to the owner, this is the Chinese restaurant in the scene. We were like, yeah, we would think about shooting here. Would you want? Is it okay if we shot here? We could pay you. And she's like, oh yeah, that'd be great. Well, how much would you want? She's like, oh, don't worry about it. We'll set everything up. It'll be fine. We'll put the food out and everything. I'm like, oh, okay, great. And it's like, are you sure? How much? It's like, well, we'll talk about it, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And me and my producer look, and she's like, oh, this is way too good to be true.
Yeah.
And so she's like, oh, so I won't be here, but I'll leave my cook here to oversee things. I'm like, okay. So we shot everything in the restaurant, went fine. And then we went outside to shoot that parking lot scene, where the brothers get in that stupid fight. We start shooting, and I start hearing this yelling from the restaurant. I'm looking over there, and one of the producers come running out, and I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, well, I tried to give the cook $100 tip, and he's like, what's this? And it's like, oh, this is a tip, you know. He's like, you mean to pay for all the food here and all the work here that we've done here? And she's like, no, this is just a tip. And he didn't seem to understand. It's like, are you, you know, he lost it. He was just like, I can't believe you think that we're worth only $100 for this stuff we're doing. So he seemed to have the right state of mind to like yell only in between takes. Yeah. So it was literally like, you know, we do our take and then cut in the background, and you know, then it was like, oh my God, what's going on? And so finally, after about 4 takes, I had to go in there, and I think he thought I was in charge. I guess because I was a director, but he kept on pointing to me when he was yelling, and so like I talked it through him, you know, and you know, I said finally I gave him my credit card, and like we got it taken care of, but like. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. You can imagine my actors like, you know, what the hell is going on? Like, is this supposed to like motivate us? I don't understand. And so yeah, it was pretty crazy, but we got through it. So yeah.
That's funny. Any other questions? Love to hear. There's one right there.
So, Tom, do the characters reflect your siblings or relationships? Oh, sorry.
I was just wondering if the characters, the siblings, if they reflect your actual kind of some relationships you have, familial relationships.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, I think, you know, I feel like I'm the person that ends up like taking care of everything in the family when things go wrong. So, you know, Margaret kind of represents me, but I actually base her on women, a couple of friends of mine, women friends of mine who are exactly like her. And so, you know, just very, very much in charge of everything, and like, you know, I wouldn't say anal, but are very like, you know, kind of like
Anal.
Yeah. a little OCD, but like, you know, that makes them so amusing to me. So like, I mess with them. But so I kind of based on that. But every one of those brothers and sisters are kind of based on like my family and people I know and where they are actually in their families, like younger brothers I know and middle children I know and older children I know, and so a little bit of that goes into it, and yeah, and I think, you know, part of it too is my brother isn't my younger brother. I have one younger brother. I mean, he's a doctor, so it's like, so he's not.
Does he have a Boba Fett collection?
He does not have. I have that, but that's
That's what I figured. I knew that came from somewhere.
Yeah, but you know, don't tell him I said this, of course, but like, you know, I end up dealing with everything, even though like he was, you know, clearly more qualified to do it. But like, you know, just like, you know, I after a while I just realized that, you know, some people are just equipped to like take care of everything and some people aren't. And so, you know, just the reality situation, and when you stop, again, fighting it and trying to work with it, is when you get things done, actually. And so, you know, I had a lot of people saying like, why didn't your brother do anything? And it's like, well, you know, if I dwelled on that, nothing would get done. So he actually does help out. It just, I have to like tell him to do something as opposed to him taking initiative. But yeah, I mean, that's the situation that Margaret's in, so that kind of plays to that too as well.
Excellent performances by the 3 siblings too. Yeah.
They were great.
The facial expressions. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I would also say that I gave the actors room to improv. So a lot of the kind of funny stuff that you see in there is like, it's a, you know, it's actually them. Like this, they would riff, and they always would riff at the end of a scene. And sometimes I would have to like yell cut like 3 times because they were just like getting into so much. And I wish someday I could show that reel of them, like, you know, the whole Yoda thing. There was a run, I swear, it went on for 5 minutes about Yoda and who Yoda was and why you talking about Yoda. That was hilarious, but like if I put it in there, the film would be twice as long. So, yeah.
I have a question. So, piggybacking on that, from a programming standpoint, I so appreciate having comedy in the films that we have, because so much of what we get in is so serious, is so kind of depressing, and we really have to struggle with not doing 80 films that are going to depress our whole audience, you know? And so when we get some comedy in, it's such a relief. But at the same time, your film covers serious things and maybe even depressing things, but the comedy just, you know, makes it palatable and makes it relatable. I was wondering, and you being from comedy yourself, can you talk about comedy and the power that comedy has to reach people?
Yeah, I think I definitely wanted to show like the funny parts of depression, if that makes sense. But I know that I wanted to keep it in reality, and so whenever I write these characters and I write the things, I make sure it's real first and let the comedy come out of the characters and have real situations. And so I think there's a real fine line between a sitcom and a drama. You know, I'm sure Dana would say that too. So writing that line is really hard to get some laughs, but also keep it real. And I think these actors were so great. I mean, I think a couple examples that every time I watch it, I just amazed at how the actors do it. Is like the scene when Margaret realizes that the glove that her dad gave the glove, and then she comes in, she's angry, and then Dana is just like, "What? I don't understand." Like it's funny when he does that, and when he goes, "Oh," and everyone's like, "Oh yeah," people laugh.
Busted.
And then, and then immediately she goes into yelling at him. Then everyone's like, "Oh shit!" And then Dana starts crying, and then it's just like everyone's like, "Oh man!" It's like it's bringing that roller coaster in, but keeping it real is really hard. But the actors are really important. And the scene after when Margaret is packing and the brothers come in and saying, "What the hell's going on?" and yelling at each other, and she's getting emotional because she's so worked up, and then they suddenly bring in this thing about the Godfather, and like people who read the scripts like, I don't know if you want to do the funny part. This is like so dramatic. I'm like, no, this is what happens in my life. It's like, serious things are happening, and then someone does something stupid, and you're just like, at the time you're like, why the hell are you doing that? But like looking back at it now, when you look at it out and outside, it's like, oh, that's kind of funny. And so the way they just wrote that line from like, she's crying, like Allie's crying in this, and then like you believe that, or at least I hope so, you believe it, and then they say these like absurd things, and then she's like, what the fuck? Like why are you saying this now? And it's so real, and then like, and then Hayden goes into the whole Neo, the Matrix thing, and then and that's at the same line he says like, but I wish you were here more, and then Hayden actually caught himself, like I don't know if you see it, but like he's about to cry. Like so it's this ridiculous thing about Matrix, and then it goes into, and like he just gets into this very dramatic thing. It's like that is like when you've cast right. It's like when actors can just flip the switch, they just roll with it and do like that. It's like something real happens. That's when the real magic happens for me. Is when I see something real. I'm just like,
let me speak something from an actor's point of view, because Tom is being very, very nice to actors. Okay, but the bottom line is, and first of all, you can't try to dissect comedy. It's very difficult to do. But as an actor, listen, I know one thing. If it's not on the page, it's not going to be on the stage. So it starts off first with the writing. If it ain't funny, I don't care who you are. You're not going to make it funny. Okay? It has to be on the page. And that comes from there. All right. Thank you.
So Dana, Sylvester Stallone, Tom Huang, similar directing styles?
Actually, Sylvester Stallone didn't direct Rambo.
Oh.
No, it's a guy named George Cosmatos.
Oh.
Yeah. And, well, no, you're right. Sylvester Stallone did direct it. George Cosmatos got the credit, but Sylvester Stallone... yeah, it's different because,
Stallone takes more steroids.
Stallone, and well, maybe you could have. No, but action movie is a little different than this. Because in an action movie, he just do it a lot. It's basically camera work. I mean, that takes care of it, a lot of it. You as an actor just come on, say the lines, get off, pretty much, and let the camera do the work, His film's a little different. There's a lot of good dialogue, good written dialogue, so you got to be able to deliver those lines. And that's it. Yeah.
Do we have time for one more question? How are we doing on time?
did I see you in the Chinese restaurant scene?
Yes,
Because I
yes,
kept
you
looking
saw
through my Where's Waldo mode turned on, and then I saw you again on the TV.
That's right. Very keen eye. Very keen eye.
Are there any more scenes where you have a cameo?
Well, kind of. In the flashbacks with the young daughter, I play
You
young
play
Dana.
me.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I never wanted to actually see, because we have to do this de-aging 7+. Also, I wanted people to see Dana's character as strong, well dad at the end. I wanted everyone to see him as depressed dad throughout the whole, so that at the end, hopefully, it would have a bigger impact of the change. But also, he's supposed to be younger, and so, so yeah.
Well, you never saw him, right?
That's right.
What younger? You know.
We probably have time for one more question, maybe? We'll take one more question.
Oh, right here, down here.
Well, just speaking of those little touches, first of all, I want you to say what the name of the rental car company was, and just what at what point in the process do you add in those like little Easter eggs for the audience to appreciate?
Probably, things like Herb's rental car company. That's all my production designer and props person. So these people, fortunately, I was able to find very experienced people as a production designer at our budget level. So she knew that certain things, if you could avoid trademarks, unlike Boba Fett, which you can't really, but if you can, that'd be great. So she put all those little things in there afterwards. Like little Easter eggs are more just Easter eggs for people that know me. Things like, I think probably any names are either names of family or friends, or people that my friends know from high school. And so when I first did a test screening, I had about 3 people, some of my old high school buddies watching, and they were just laughing like in the corner because all these names like Eric Romeo, Adrian Roberts, these old people from our past. So little things that I just kind of slide in there for people that know me. But yeah, it kind of starts from the page and when you start writing.
Cool, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, well, this is, we're an Asian American Film Festival, and we want to tell Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander stories. Your films are just so universally relatable, and, the focus is not on maybe cultural identity, but you do represent cultural identity, and you do it so well. We just really appreciate the quality of this film. We see the growth over 3 films. You've definitely just embodied this great, experienced director, and some of the scenes that did have culture in it were like when the mom was comforting her son by insulting him. That was cultural. That was so comfortable. And having, juk in the, to eat and stuff like that instead of the, rotten donuts, I would have done that too. So you definitely represented us so well, and we just appreciate it. Thank you so much.